Welcome to this explainer. Today we're diving straight into a fascinating and incredibly complex region, East Turkestan, or as it's referred to by the Chinese government, Xinjiang. Just to give you a quick sense of scale here, we're analyzing a massive 1.7 million square kilometer area. That is literally 1/5 of China's entire landmass, and it happens to be home to nearly 10 million Uyghur Muslims. Let's look closely at what the data actually tells us about this place.
Well, right off the bat, I want you to consider a pretty stark contradiction. How does the vast majority of a deeply resource-rich region end up living below the poverty line? It's a real paradox, isn't it? As we unpack the data today, I want you to keep this central question in the back of your mind. We're going to look strictly at what the numbers and historical accounts tell us about how this reality actually came to be.
Okay, let's dive into our roadmap. We'll start with the identity and history of East Turkestan, then move through political shifts and religious restrictions. After that, we'll examine the paradox of wealth and poverty, look at demographic change and twin kinship, and finally, wrap up with the international stance on the issue. Let's get started. Section 1. Identity and History of East Turkestan.
The Uyghur people have a very distinct cultural identity. They speak Turkic languages and actually write using the Arabic script. And their history, it runs deep. Islam first entered the region way back in the 1st Hijri century through the military commander Qutayba bin Muslim. Fast forward a bit to the 4th Hijri century, and the ruler Satuk Bagra Khan embraced Islam, which established an independent Islamic state that lasted for over 10 centuries. But as we move down the timeline, the governance really starts to shift. We see the first Chinese occupations happen in 1759 and then again in 1881. Jumping to the 20th century, specifically in 1933, the Islamic Republic of East Turkestan was actually declared in the city of Kashgar, though it remained an incomplete dream. And that brings us to the pivotal year of 1949, when Chinese forces entered the region once again, setting up the system that governs it today.
Section 2. Political Shifts and Religious Restrictions.
Those events in 1949 marked a profound systemic shift, and this brilliantly illustrates the sheer breadth of the policies that followed. The source data points to sweeping restrictions on deeply personal practices. We're talking about the closing of mosques, banning the practice of fasting, and completely prohibiting traditional dress like the hijab or growing beards. There are also documented records of the burning of Qurans and the arrest of religious scholars. The restrictions literally extend down to personal names, with names like Muhammad and Islam being explicitly banned. The picture painted by the data here is one of incredibly comprehensive regulation over religious expression.
Section 3. The Paradox of Wealth and Poverty.
To really grasp the strategic importance of this region, we have to look beneath the soil. East Turkestan is staggeringly rich in natural resources. It holds 25% of China's entire oil reserves and 28% of its natural gas. And that's alongside an abundance of gold, coal, and uranium. This immense level of resource concentration makes the area an absolute engine for the broader economy. The wealth generated from this land is, by any metric you use, massive.
But here is where that paradox we talked about hits the hardest. Despite sitting on a quarter of the nation's oil and gas, 80% of Uyghur Muslims live below the poverty line. No, really, 80%. It is a massive economic disparity. To put that into perspective, the immense wealth of the land just does not appear to reflect in the economic reality of the 10 million Uyghurs who actually live there.
Section 4. Demographic Change and Twin Kinship.
You see, economic disparity is just one piece of the puzzle here, because the population itself is fundamentally changing. Before 1949, Muslims made up approximately 97% of the region. Today, that number has plummeted to less than 40%. This is driven by policies that actively encourage Han Chinese migration alongside the displacement of the native population. We are witnessing a complete reshaping of the demographic makeup.
So the crucial point on this slide is how this demographic shift actually extends directly into private homes through a policy known as twin kinship. Under the banner of coexistence, some Uyghurs are forced to host Chinese government officials inside their very own homes. According to the source material, this raises profound concerns about the total loss of domestic privacy as well as the further erosion of cultural and religious identity within people's most personal, intimate spaces.
Section 5. The International Stance on the Issue.
Having mapped out all these historical changes, the religious restrictions, and the domestic policies, a natural question pops up. How exactly has the rest of the world responded? Well, Despite the sheer magnitude of these documented hardships, East Turkestan has not been accepted under any international protection system. Furthermore, there is a complete absence of international sanctions regarding these specific actions. The global response, objectively speaking, simply has not resulted in any protective or punitive international frameworks.
Based on all the data and history we've unpacked today, it leaves us with a really vital, lingering question. What exactly does the future hold for the cultural identity of East Turkestan? And perhaps even more importantly, what does this total lack of an international response tell us about the true, practical state of global protections today? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep questioning the data and keep learning.